Welcome to the FedLife Podcast with Dan Sipe from Serving Those Who Serve. In this podcast, Dan draws from years of financial experience to help federal employees overcome challenges that every Fed can relate to. Join us for this journey as we reach, teach, and serve to help you make the right financial decisions. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the FedLife Podcast. I am your host, Dan Sipe. Additionally, I'm the branch manager here at Serving Those Who Serve and Lee Sipe and Associates. Going to start as I always do. I hope you're not tired of hearing it. I am certainly not tired of saying it. With saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And above all, thank you for your service. You don't hear it enough. You will always hear it here. You'll never guess who's back with me. You know him as the guru. I know him as my brother Ed. Yes, Ed Zurndorfer is back with us again as part of our ongoing mission to reach, teach, and serve you. And now it's time for my compliance carve-out. At the outset, I need to say the opinions of our guest, Ed Zurndorfer, are not the opinions of Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. This podcast is presented for the information only and not intended to be taken as advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. And now that I've said that, if you don't have a personal advisor, hit us up at Serving Those Who Serve. We will help you any way we can. Once again, we will follow Ed's FEDZONE articles to give us one more way to reach you, teach you, and serve you. So, as I always recommend, make sure that you head over to the FEDZONE at fed-zone.com, and you will see Ed's latest article, because many times he has terrific tables in there, which will help you understand it. Today, we are keeping a promise. If you listened to our last episode, you know we went halfway into the benefits for special provisions feds. That would be law enforcement officers, air traffic controllers, firefighters. So here we are with part 2 of that. And we will be digging in to the Fers annuity computation, including the retirement supplement. We'll be touching on TSP withdrawal rules for special provision, and lastly, a bit about insurance benefits in retirement. But before we jump in, Ed, you know, I'm kind of a geek for this, you know that. So this one had me kind of scratching my head. Have we reached the year where there can no longer be an active CSRS special provisions person who is still covered just under special provisions?
Well, let's talk about that, Dan. In our last podcast, we talked about the fact that law enforcement, firefighters, air traffic controllers have to retire by a certain age. An air traffic controller has to retire no later than age 57, and a firefighter and a law enforcement officer has to retire by age 56, I believe. It's either 56 or 57. But here's the point, that anybody who was hired into federal service before January 1st, 1984 was put into the older retirement system, the civil service retirement system. So that was, 37 years ago.
So at 22, they'd be 59.
So that means that if they were hired into federal service sometime before 1984, let's say 1983, take it 1983. Okay. All right, that now is 39 years later?
Right.
And if they're turning 57 this year, 38, that means that when they came into federal service, they had to be about 18 or 19 years old.
Which is pretty young.
That is fairly young.
Yep.
I mean, it's possible. It is quite possible, but highly doubtful that there's anybody left as a LEO firefighter or an air traffic controller who's under the older retirement system. CSRs.
That'd be my guess. But if you're out there and you happen to hear this, hit us up, send us an email. We'd love to know that you're out there. But no, that makes sense. That was just something that had me scratching my head, and I knew you're the one person I could talk to about it. So let's get back to it. Special provisions under Fers have a different formula. So what is that?
When a special provision employee retires, the way their Fers annuity is calculated is almost the same as a non-special provision employee. Namely, you take your years of service, including unused sick leave, and multiply that times the high 3 average salary, and then multiply that by what's called an accrual factor. An accrual factor. For most FERS employees, that accrual factor is either 1% or 1.1%, depending on when they retire.
Yep.
But for a special provision employee, that accrual factor for the first 20 years of service, Dan, is 1.7%. 1.7% for every year of service up to 20. Every year thereafter, they get 1% of their high 3 average salary. 1%.
Got it.
So let's say there is a special provision employee who retires at age 52. And they can retire with 25 years of service at any age.
Okay.
The formula to calculate their FERS annuity is 1.7% times 20. That's 20 times 1.7% or 34%, plus 5 times 5 years. And I have to add to the 5 years, by the way, Dan, the unused sick leave. The unused sick leave is counted for the 1% factor. So let's say they have half a year's worth of unused sick leave, half a year's worth of unused sick leave. So
Gotcha.
we're going to multiply 5.5 times 1%, which is 5.5% added to the 34%, which means they're going to get for their starting FERS annuity. Their starting FERS annuity, Dan, will be 39.5% of their high 3 average salary.
Gotcha.
So that would be their starting FERS annuity.
Gotcha. Now, and you gave me a great segue there, Ed, by just the way you stretched that FERS. So obviously, if somebody is retiring, and they'd have to come in pretty young, but let's go with, say, 52 or 53, they got a lot of years before they can pick up Social Security. So what is filling the gap?
When a FERS employee retires before age 62, and many do, they could retire as early as their minimum retirement age, which is between age 55 and 57. They could retire with 30 years of service, or they could retire at age 60 with 20 years. They're going to receive their FERS annuity, and they're eligible to draw their traditional TSP with no early withdrawal penalty, assuming they're at least age 55. You can start drawing your traditional TSP starting the year you turn. If you retire anytime during the year you turn 55 with no early withdrawal penalty, and that's the second component of the FERS retirement. And the third component of the FERS retirement is Social Security. However, the earliest age one can draw Social Security, this is their retirement benefit, not their disability benefit. Their retirement benefit is age 62. So what happens is when a FERS employee retires before age 62, they in fact will be missing one of the 3 components of the FERS retirement.
Yep.
So what OPM automatically does, Dan, is that retiring employee will receive something called the FERS Annuity Supplement, which is a percentage of their anticipated Social Security benefit at age 62. That percentage is computed by OPM, and just to give you a rough idea how they do this, what OPM does is they contact Social Security and they ask Social Security for this retiring employee, what is this retiring employee's Social Security anticipated benefit at age 62 if they were to draw it right now? And Social Security gives OPM the information, and then when OPM gets that information, they form a ratio. The numerator is the number of years of FERS service, and the denominator is the number 40. Why 40? Because most people during their working career will pay into Social Security for 40 years. What OPM is trying to do here, Dan, is to capture the amount of that Social Security benefit at age 62 that the FERS employee earned as a FERS employee. That's why they do this ratio.
Gotcha.
But here's the point. This FERS annuity supplement will be paid to this retiring federal employee starting the month after they retire, and it will continue until age 62. At that point, it will stop. because at age 62, the FERS employee, or now retiree, has an opportunity to enroll in Social Security. And the same thing would be true for a retired special provision employees. They all retire before age 60. They have to. We talked about the mandatory retirement age of 56 or 57. So they could retire earlier if they have at least 25 years of service. They could retire at age 50 with a minimum 20 years of service. And they also would receive the FERS annuity supplement in addition to, I emphasize, in addition to their regular FERS annuity.
Gotcha.
But there's one other thing you need to know, Dan, about this FERS new supplement. It is subject to what is called an earnings test.
Yes,
earnings test. And what the earnings test says is that if a FERS annuitant drawing a FERS annuity and receiving the FERS new supplement, and they decide to go out and get another job, work in private industry, then if they earn too much in that private job, OPM will say, well, if you earn too much money, we will take back some, if not all, of your FERS annuity supplement. What is this earnings test? It is the identical earnings test that the Social Security Administration uses for any retiree who starts drawing their Social Security starting at age 62, or they start drawing their Social Security benefit anytime between age 62 and their full retirement age. They're drawing their Social Security retirement benefit, and they also decide they want to keep working.
Got it.
And if they earn too much money, some, if not all, of their Social Security benefits will be taken back by the Social Security Administration. The identical test, Dan, is used by OPM for a FERS retiree who receives this annuity supplement. It's only imposed on the FERS annuity supplement. The FERS annuity is not subject to that. It's just the FERS annuity supplement. But here's what you have to know if you're a special provision employee. Your FERS annuity supplement is not subject to that earnings test if you retire before your minimum retirement age, MRA. What is minimum retirement age? Any age between 55 to 57.
Okay.
And depending on what year you're born. If you were born between 1953 and 1964, your minimum retirement age is 56. If you were born anytime after 1969, your minimum retirement age is 57. And if you're in between, it's like 56 years and 2 months, 56 years and 3 months, et cetera. But what a special provision employee has to keep in mind is that their FERS new supplement is not subject to the earnings test if they retire before MRA until they reach their MRA. What this means, Dan, is a special provision employee could retire at any age with 25 years of service. They could retire at age 50 with a minimum 20 years of service, receive their FERS annuity, get the FERS new supplement, go out and work as much as they want, and the FERS new supplement will not be subject to this earnings test. Earnings tests will until they reach their MRA. At that point, OPM imposes the earnings test the month they become minimum retirement age.
Now, I'm going to make a sweeping statement here, and I'm sure I'll get a note from my compliance department on this. If you are a Leo and you are planning on retiring, get some good counseling on this type of thing, because it's easy stuff to miss. Ed and I spend our days, our lives marinating in this stuff. And most people don't. So it's really, really easy to miss. And it doesn't have to be with us, but find somebody who really knows this stuff and make sure that you have your plan set. Because what Ed just described is not that far-fetched. Someone could come straight out of college, put in their time, and be well before a 56 or a 57 minimum retirement age, go to work as a retired Leo. And I know from my own practice, that is not unusual. That private security, corporate security, things like that, a lot of opportunities there. And you get out to 56 or 57, wham, something drops off. You don't know why. So take the time, measure twice, cut once when you do this type of thing. Now, Ed, they also have a different rule for cost of living adjustment.
Yes, Dan. The rule is for cost of living adjustments, COLAs, is that when a FERS employee retires before age 62, their FERS annuity is not going to get any COLAs, any cost of living adjustments, until the retiree reaches age 62.
Yep.
Age 62. But there's an exception to that, and that is a special provision employee. When a special provision employee retires, again, at any age with a minimum 25 years of special provision service, or age 50 with a minimum 20 years of special provision employee service, they start receiving their FERS annuity, and they will get their first COLA the year after they retire. This is This is the exception to the rule here.
Gotcha. And to me, that's fair, because you got people that are going into work in vocations that protect us, keep us safe, that type of thing, and they have these maximum work-life setups. So personally, I think that's more than fair. Now, Ed, in your article, you also make some comments about MRA 10 and MRA 20. Would you expand on that, please?
Yeah, there are some opportunities for FERS employees to retire at their minimum retirement age with less than 30 years of service. They could retire at their MRA with between 10 and 19 years of service. They could retire at their MRA with 20 to 29 years of service. But this is a special type of retirement in which the employee, if they start receiving their annuity, will not get a full annuity. It's going to be reduced because they're underage. Somebody retires, a FERS employee retires between 10 and 19 years of service. For every year they're under age 62 when that annuity starts, their annuity is going to be reduced by 5% per year. 5% per year. And if they have between 20 and 29 years of service, then their annuity will reduce 5% for every year they're under age 60. But here's the point, Dan. A special provision employee does not have that option. They cannot go out under the MRA plus 10 and MRA plus 20. I call it reduced immediate retirement. Reduced immediate retirement because they're underage. This does not apply to a special provision employee.
You did stress that early withdrawal penalties for TSP don't apply the same as they do to other FERS retirees. Let's spend a little more time on that.
Okay, this is very important that special provisions take note of this. That the rule is for withdrawing one's traditional TSP. Dan, I emphasize traditional because there is that other TSP account called a Roth TSP. What I'm about to say only applies to the traditional TSP. When can a FERS employee, or a CSRS employee for that matter, start drawing their traditional TSP and not be subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty? And the answer is that if a FERS employee retires sometime during or after the year they turn 55, they can start drawing their traditional TSP without being subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty. They have to pay federal and in many cases state income tax, but not an early withdrawal penalty. If a FERS employee retires, let's say under an early retirement before age 55, because under FERS, a FERS employee could retire at any age with 25 years of FERS service. This is any type of employee. We're not talking about special provision employees. Or they could retire at age 50 with a minimum 20 years of service. In that case, they're going to start receiving an unreduced FERS annuity. There's no penalty for retiring under their minimum retirement age. However, they cannot start drawing their TSP, their traditional TSP, until they reach 59 and a half.
Gotcha.
Because they retired before the year they turned 55.
Got it.
This is not the case for a special provision employee.
Okay.
Under a law that was passed, Dan, back in 2015, a special provision employee who retires under a regular retirement, minimum 25 years of service at any age, or age 50 with 20 years of special provision employee service, can start withdrawing from their TSP, traditional TSP, without penalty, even though they're retiring before MRA, and not be subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty. But here is the thing. This is what special provisions have to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. They must retire at age 50 or later. If they retire with 25 years of service at age, let's say age 48, Dan?
Gotcha.
Then they're going to have to wait till 59 and a half to start receiving their traditional TSP and not be subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty. This provision only applies to special provision employees who retire sometime or during the year they turn age 50.
Got it. And, one other thing, I just want to loop back to it again before we move on. For example, if somebody under Social Security has an impact to their benefits because of the earnings test, later down the road, they have a shot of getting that back. There's no way to do that with the Fers supplement, correct?
That is correct. And I'd just like to add to something else I said about the Fers new supplement. That's regarding the COLA. The Fers annuity supplement does not get any cost of living adjustment, even if you are a special provision employee and you retire before MRA. There's no COLA on that retirement annuity supplement.
Gotcha. So these, folks, so many times the devil's in the details on these things. So I'll put it out there again. If you're special provisions and you're thinking about retiring, number one, hit up our website. If you never want to talk to us, you can get a great education there. Between what we've got in the podcasts, we've got close to 60 of them out there now on all the topics. Some are more popular than others, we've noticed, but we're still going to keep doing them so you have them no matter what. We've got Ed's articles, we've got Benefits Ben's articles, Jen Meyer's writing. There's a ton of stuff there. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we had curated this in a way that it's easy for you to find, easy for you to understand. And you can always just email a question. So you don't need to try and fly alone on this. That's why we're here. So, okay, let's move on. Last but not least, let's talk about your article covers survivorship. And that's pretty much the same for our special provisions folks, correct?
That is correct. A special provision employee retires can give a survivor annuity benefit, that is a Fers survivor annuity benefit, to one person. That one person can be a spouse. It can be someone who has an insurable interest in the employee. That's an insurable interest is defined as a relative closer than a first cousin. That would be a son, a daughter, a brother, or a sister. However, the most logical person to get a survivor annuity is a spouse. Also have to point out, Dan, it could be a former spouse. If there's a court order out there or there's a settlement in which an employee was married and was married to someone while they were in federal service, that former spouse has rights to a survivor annuity as well as part of their annuity when the person is living. So keep that fact in mind. And as I say, only one person can get this survivor annuity. I do want to point out that if you are a married special provision employee going to be retiring and you're thinking about giving a survivor annuity benefit to a spouse, I really encourage you to do so. One of the reasons I say that is because if your spouse is on your federal employee health insurance, and your spouse is not a federal employee, as long as you're living, your spouse can stay on your federal employee's health insurance. But if your spouse is not going to be getting any amount of a survivor annuity, nothing, upon your death, if you predecease your spouse, upon your death, your spouse is going to lose that federal employee's health insurance benefit. And I can't think of anything worse that could happen to a surviving spouse, to lose that health insurance coverage.
Couldn't agree with you more, Ed. And you've got a webinar on survivorship, right?
Yes, we do. We have a webinar on survivor benefits. If you don't mind, I'll give you the next date because I have a list of all the good dates here. We're giving our next survivor benefit webinar. It's free. I encourage you, if you've never taken a survivor benefits webinar, please do so. And that will occur, Dan, on October the 7th. October the 7th. Okay, it's up there at www.stwserve.com. It's free. You can attend as many times as you want, any webinar. We have about 7 to 10 webinars a month. I do these webinars along with Jen Meyer and Matt Kramer. I think you get a lot out of them. There's no such thing as a dumb question. You can ask as many questions as you want and attend as many times as you want.
Well, brother, I got to pass this along to you because one of our feedback forms came in and, asked if there's any suggestions. And they said, I will listen to anything Ed Zurndorfer. And I checked to see if that might be your wife, and it wasn't. It was, so you've got a super fan out there, Ed.
I really encourage that, but maybe you'll talk to my wife, Dan. Maybe she can put a good word in for me too, please.
There we go. Okay, so last but not least on our special provisions, folks, let's touch briefly, as your article does, on life and health insurance. Anything different there for them going into retirement?
Regarding the health insurance, because this is going to be related to the life insurance, in order to keep one's federal employees' health insurance coverage into and throughout their retirement, a special provision employee, like any other federal employee, has to be a participant in the federal employee health insurance program for at least all of the last 5 years ending on the day they retire. It has to be at least those last 5 years, in order to keep that health insurance benefit into and throughout retirement. And ditto for the federal employees' group life insurance, FEDLI. If you want to keep your FEDLI into retirement, I know we're going to be talking about FEDLI a little bit later, but I have to say this, that if you want to keep your federal employees' group life insurance, FEDLI, into retirement, you also have to be enrolled in it for at least all of the last 5 years ending on the day you retire.
That's right.
The other insurance benefits, dental, vision, in which the employees are paying the full amount of premiums, there's no 5-year rule, Dan, with this. If a special provision employee never was enrolled in the dental and or vision insurance, it's called the Federal Employees Dental Vision Insurance Program, they can join after they retire during the open season, which is held every year in November through early December. And they can have their spouses on their dental and vision insurance. And if the retiree predeceases their spouse, again, in order for the spouse to retain the dental and vision insurance, they also have to be receiving a survivor annuity, like we said about the federal health benefits.
Gotcha.
And the other insurance benefit is long-term care insurance. There is no 5-year rule for that. The special provision employee does not have to be enrolled currently in the long-term care insurance. They can enroll after they retire, and so can their spouse. So there's no rules regarding that.
Gotcha. Hey, folks, here's something I want to say. I've been working and blessed to serve feds for 35 plus years now. There's stuff I got to look up. Ed's got it all. I mean, he's got a Cray supercomputer inside that noggin of his. That's the only thing I can figure, because it's just woven into his DNA, that he knows this stuff at the cellular level. And it still amazes me. I don't know how you do it. I'm glad you do it with us, and especially for, what you bring to our team to raise the level. Thank you for that, Ed.
Most welcome. My pleasure. I enjoy it immensely, Dan, helping feds.
And we do as well. And folks, that is a wrap. We are serving those who serve. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on the YouTube channel and Spotify. And please remember to share it with your friends, strangers, everybody. Just kick it out there. We're getting back to where people are going back to the office. There's commuting again, so this will help you pass the time. Check us out on Twitter and LinkedIn. Do not forget, as Ed mentioned, our live webinars every week. Just go to stwserve.com. You'll see the big webinar button. Click it, and it'll take you right to the menu. You can pick what you want. The guru will come to you, so we can reach you where you are, teach you where you are, and serve you where you are. Sign up for one, sign up for all, share them with your friends. I guarantee you they will thank you. Be sure to read Ed every single week in the FedZone. That's at feds-zone.com. And you can also find that at blog.stwserve.com. So for Ed, the crew at Serving Those Who Serve, and me, Dan Sipe, as I always like to sign off, good luck, Godspeed. And in this, I'm going to add one more thing. because we're talking about special provisions. That means firefighters. I know there are a bunch of you that are on the front lines out in the West. May God watch over you and keep you safe. God bless, Godspeed, come back safely. And for everybody else, all my Fed audience, remember, we love you. It's your Fed life. Make it a great one because you deserve it. Stay well, everybody. We are out.
Thank you for listening to the FedLife Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Serving Those Who Serve or Raymond James. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors Incorporated. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.
Raymond James is not affiliated with and does not endorse the opinions or services of the quoted professionals or their respective organizations.